Merry Christmas 2016. Got Rachel on camera. This is Carrie Kai, Cooking with Kai episode. Today we're doing Mrs. Georgievich's stuffed cabbage. And as you see, these are all the ingredients here laid out. We've got 4 pounds of meatloaf mix, which could be beef, pork, and veal. You've got 3 heads of cabbage, 3 onions, which are going to be finely chopped, 1 cup of sour cream, and then we're going to use a half envelope of this beefy onion. I always go with the whole envelope, kind of like with a little bit of water to break it down. 2 eggs, 3/4 cup parboiled rice, which means you just make like a cup of rice. Have that ready. A little bit of parsley, 4 cans of soup, 2 cans of sauce. So it's kind of a 4 to 2 ratio on the soup as opposed to the tomato sauce, which you're going to mix all the sauces together with like 3/4 cup of water and just pour it over the top. So the first thing we're going to do is start boiling some water and get ready to start peeling those leaves off the cabbage. Okay, we've gotten things started. We have 3 pots of boiling water to put the cabbage in so that we can start peeling the leaves off. I've made a 1 cup of water with salt and a half a cup of rice, starting that boiling for 15 minutes. And now a hint for eggs. When you're going to crack eggs, put them in a bowl so in case any shells go in there, you can see them instead of putting them in your large pot of meat and then having to dig them out. Okay, so here we go. Now I've prepared the head of cabbage a little bit by carefully using a small serrated knife and kind of going around the core a little bit. You don't have to do that because as it gets soft it kind of pulls off pretty easily, but I'm just doing it for the ease of operation right now. And then you just drop it on in some boiling water, carefully not to splash yourself, and then you just wait for the leaves to get softer, and then you just start pulling them off. Okay, and as it softens up, you simply just pull the leaves off and place them in any container with sides on it because there's a lot of water involved. Just start pulling off the leaves, trying not to make holes in them, and you just keep doing that till it's all gone. Okay, so we got a sufficient number of little blankets for our piggies. So now we're taking the heads of cabbage out of the water. We're going to put them aside. We'll chop them later. And now you see that the onions are clear. I've sauteed the 3 onions and they're clear, which means they're sauteed. So now you take your sour cream, regular old sour cream, 8 ounces or 1 cup. How convenient that they did it in the 1 cup container. And you add that and some paprika. So you add the sour cream to the 3 sauteed onions, a little bit of paprika, a little bit of paprika. Alrighty then. Mix that up real good, and when the sour cream bubbles, it's done. Okay, now we come to the moment of mixing the meat. This is the envelope of Lipton onion soup mix with a little bit of water. We use usually, it's up to you what spices you want to put in there. I put in black pepper, a little bit of seasoned salt, a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder, 2 beaten eggs. Eggs. You know what that sound means? They named eggs after the sound a chicken makes when it produces one. Egg. So this is the rice mixed with the onions and sour cream, and I let it cool off so it doesn't burn my hands when I mix everything. It's all of it together, and you just simply get in there with your hands and you start mixing. Alright, here we go. Now this is the part that took me a long time to figure out. You get a knife, you take your leaf of cabbage, you get a knife in there, and you just shave off the spine of the cabbage leaf. And you know what that does? Without a hole in it, it makes it more pliable so you can use it as a blanket. So then you take a little handful of this stuff. You don't want to pack it or make it into a ball because then it'll be too firm. So you just want to gently lift it out. Don't pack it or round it into a ball or anything. Just kind of gently place it in there, and you start rolling like so. Fold the sides in and you roll it up. Tucking, rolling. You tuck and roll just like back in the Cold War. And you tuck and roll, and then you put it into the pan, which you've already laid a little sauce, chopped up some of your extra cabbage, so you have cabbage head kind of left over once you get as many leaves as you want. And you just start lining them up right in there. So you put a little sauce, a little chopped cabbage, and then you start lining up your guys' seam down. Now I'm just showing you how I make the chopped cabbage, because it occurred to me that some people might not know to cut it off the core. So this is the cabbage, head of cabbage. Here's the core, and you give that to your rabbit. And then you take the cabbage you cut off the core and you just chop it like so. Just nice chopping and throwing in to the pan here. Sprinkle it. Oh, I forgot to put the sauce in first. First you put a little sauce in there. Then you chop the cabbage and put it in. There you go. Put a little sauce in there. Good. Now, just so you know this cutting the vein out part, how it works, is you take the cabbage leaf like that, you flip it over and put your fingers under it. You start at the top of the thin part of the vein, go down, putting your little finger, your middle finger under it. For me, this is the hardest part, that's why I'm showing it twice. And then you go all the way down, and there you go. You got one with the vein cut out, and it's more flexible, and then easier to use, plus the person won't bite into that. And another note also is that if you were really making ethnic stuffed cabbage, you would brine your cabbage heads for a few, like 2 weeks, I think, in salted water. So actual stuffed cabbage is made from sauerkraut or brined cabbage heads. So, but we don't do that in the U.S. I don't, you know, it tastes good. I don't know why we don't do it. So again, you take a little handful of loosely packed meat. You put it in there, kind of like however you feel it would match up. So, you know, I don't know how much meat that is. That's, you know, probably like 3 fingers worth. You begin to roll it. You straighten out your leaf. You roll the guys in, the edges. You just put it all together, tuck and roll. Yeah, like you were on fire, or, you know, in the Cold War. And there you go. And then you put it in on the bed of chopped cabbage, a little bit of sauce, and line them up like so. And then you'll cover them with sauce and a lid and bake, but we'll come back to that. So what I'm doing here is I'm chopping the leftover leaves because, as you can see, we used up all the meat. Chopping the leftover leaves of cabbage, placing them on sprinkling them over the top. I have this previous one also. And then I'll put the sauce over. I like chopped cabbage and sauce, so I put a lot on there. Now I take the sauce, remainder of the sauce, pour it over the top, bake at 350 for 2 hours because what we made were 3 heads of cabbage, so that made about a 35 roll yield. Of course, you can half this recipe. So I'm going to cook this at about 2.5 hours for 350. But you could cook it longer and then take your meat thermometer and test it. If it should be at least 165, like poke it into one in the middle, and the temperature should be at least 165. And Michael Kai wanted me to show this recipe that I wrote 40 years ago when Mrs. Georgievich told me how to make stuffed cabbage when I was her daughter-in-law. But I really appreciate her very much, and thank you, Mrs. Georgievich. Her name is Helga Pape Georgievich Evans, and she lives in North Royalton, Ohio. This is her recipe. Thank you. Merry Christmas.